So who are the main players in the mobile landscape? So the first is we have the OEM, originating equipment manufacturers. And these have always been important players. Until a few years ago, Nokia was far and away the biggest. But once again, Apple changed the landscape. Now, it's important to remember that although Apple and the iPhone is a really important device in defining the landscape, they're certainly not the biggest manufacturer. They represent roughly about 15% of all devices out there in the UK and probably about 10 or 11% worldwide. It's hard to be precise because manufacturers don't always publish their figures. Recent data shows that Samsung are doing extremely well, and they are probably the biggest phone manufacturer currently. Nokia still sell a lot of phones, though, and it's important to remember them as a big player, not particularly in the smartphone market, but certainly in the developing markets in places like Asia and Africa. They are the company that essentially has democratized the world with the mobile phone. And then we have the MNOs, the mobile network operators. So in the UK, we have O2, Vodafone, and Three. And there's been a merger between Orange and T-Mobile, and although they still trade under their own brands, that merger has come together under the brand of Everything Everywhere. The job of the mobile network operators essentially is to provide the connection. They provide our voice, they provide our data, they provide our text channels. But there is a debate about whether the MNOs are actually a media provider or whether they're just simply the dumb pipes. So is our mobile operator like a utility company, like the gas company or the electricity company, or are they more like our television company, like the BBC and ITV, or are they like a Google? Now, the MNOs would like us to see them very much as a media channel, and they are beginning to diversify, and they're delivering more and more mobile advertising. Currently, for example, O2 have the O2 More channel, which is a direct marketing channel, and Orange have something called Orange Shots. During 2012, there is a plan for what they're calling a joint venture, Project Oscar, in which all of the main UK networks will come together and offer a single marketing channel. And at that point, we'll begin to see the mobile operators much more as a media channel. Now, whether consumers regard them as a media channel, would you want advertising from your gas or your electricity company? I don't know. But that is what the mobile operators are trying to do, and they will play an increasingly important role in mobile advertising. And then operating systems. I talked earlier about the importance of the mobile operating systems. So Apple are absolutely the main player. One of the interesting things about Apple is that there are approximately 200 million iOS devices out there. That's iPhones, iPads, iPod Touches. And when that actually only represents a small proportion of the total number of mobile devices out there. So in terms of operating systems, they only represent a small number. But if you look at usage, Apple always over-index. So in other words, the data usage from iPhones in the UK is greater than anything else. Now, having said that, Android is catching up rapidly. So Android was a company who were already running, and Google bought into them very much as their own iOS. And Google wanted to do that because they wanted to own search on mobile. And it has very much that kind of functionality. But because it's open source, there is no cost to it, and it can be implemented in a number of devices. So manufacturers, particularly Samsung and HTC, have taken up the Android operating system and have used it through a range of devices. We've now seen development in Windows 7, and this has been very much relaunched with Microsoft in partnership with Nokia. It remains to be seen how important it will be, but one of the big areas has been its connection with Xbox Live. And that is for Microsoft, the Xbox Live connection is probably the killer application of all of this. And then we have BlackBerry. Now, BlackBerry, like Apple, is a proprietary system. It is only available on their particular handsets. And BlackBerry is interesting because it's split very much into two parts. It was originally a business device aimed at really providing email to business users, but teenagers have picked up on it in the last few years. The main driver for that has been about BBM, BlackBerry Messenger, their instant messaging. It's free. You can message your friends anonymously, you can group message, you can pass on conversations. And that popularity has meant that BlackBerry is a very high used OS, particularly amongst younger teenage markets. And then in terms of delivering it, we have the mobile marketing agencies. Now, brands can choose to either do it themselves in-house, or they can bring in expertise. They can bring that in the form of consultancies like myself, or they can actually go to an agency. There are a number of mobile agencies in the UK. Here are some of the principal ones. People like Isobar Mobile, who are very much about strategy and design. Incentivated, who have a very strong track record on delivering CRM and messaging. Sponge, who are very much focused on apps. And AKQA, who have a great reputation for building high-end applications for mobile. And then you've got the more traditional advertising agencies. The line between who is a marketing company and who is an agency is difficult to say, but attached to some of the main advertising agencies, they have their own mobile divisions. So people like M&C Saatchi, Somo, Ring, and so on. And they tend to provide mobile services to their existing customer base. And then there are the value-added service providers. And these are the kind of people that a brand, or sometimes even the agencies themselves, will go to do specific things. So we've seen a merger between Velti, who are a Greek-based player, and Mobile Interactive Group, MIG, who are one of the UK's biggest value-added service providers. And they provide platforms for everything from messaging through to advertising and through to apps. UsableNet, for example, have really helped deliver retail onto mobile devices, and people like Open Market and 2Go have developed billing systems and CRM systems. And then you've got application builders themselves. Now, application building is a difficult area because although people have tried to standardize it, the fact is that every application build is essentially bespoke. But there are a number of systems that allow you to do that. Grapple, for example, allows you to build a single app. They will build a single app and put it across all devices. So one of the questions is, who are the media owners? Is it the operators, or are they the other media channels? Now, what's interesting is the shift. So a few years ago, it was all about the people on the left. It was all about the operators and the operator portal in particular. So if you wanted to get your content, you had to go online. And the first place you had to start, because it was built into the handset, would be at their portal. So Vodafone had one called Vodafone Live, T-Mobile had one called T-Zones, Orange had Orange World, and so on. And that's where people started their journey. Typically, they went to that page and then they went elsewhere. And in the early days, when we were actually trying to deliver particularly apps and links to mobile sites, you had to be on the operator portal. That was an expensive thing to do. And if you weren't on the first page, you were absolutely nowhere. Now, with the advent of the smartphone, the iPhone in particular, that has all shifted. So first and foremost, you have Apple and particularly iTunes App Store. And that is really one of the principal media owners in mobile. But also Google are inevitably a significant media owner. Not just across things like search, but also through Google Market. And then obviously BlackBerry through BlackBerry World is very important, but also increasingly it's about social media, so Facebook and Twitter. So for most brands, if you want to talk to the media owners in mobile, you're probably going to be talking to the people on the right-hand side, not the people on the left. But there is a problem with mobile media. Now, this is something that actually Mary Meeker presented last year in 2011 as part of her update on mobile. And here's what's happening, is that we're actually spending less and less time in certain media, like print, and more time in mobile. So as of 2011, mobile and print, in terms of media time we spent looking at content, were roughly 8%. And yet print, 27% of advertising spend, and mobile, just 0.5%. Now, arguably that could be because print has a successful track record. But nonetheless, consumers are shifting into this media, and brands need to follow. So we're beginning to see development of mobile advertising networks. So essentially, we've seen various small media owners pop up, and they're getting aggregated into larger networks. The biggest of which inevitably is Google. Google bought a mobile advertising company called AdMob a few years ago, and that's now part of Google Advertising, Google Mobile Advertising, and they're a significant player. But you're also seeing the independents, Millennial, Immobie, and full-screen advertising, who are actually aggregating all the different networks and providing an advertising channel to brands and to agencies. And then finally, you've got the important part, the analytics as well. You can't do stuff unless you actually know what's going on, how can you measure it. One of the best products that we use for mobile strategy is Comscore. And they have a product called MobiLens, which allows you to actually look across different demographics, see what people are doing, their kind of activities, do they use apps, across different age groups, genders, and so on. And that's for US and EU5. And it's a great but very expensive product for helping you define mobile. Nielsen have something similar. And AdMob, until recently, we were producing some great reports. Outside of that, there is lots of potential for finding information. Google have something called Our Mobile Planet, which is a great tool that they worked with Ipsos to survey smartphone users. And you can gain quite a lot of information about behavior. I mentioned at the start the importance of mobile transaction, and we're increasingly seeing mobile payments as a significant part of the mobile channel. Interestingly, there's a bit of a battle between how that payment is going to happen. So initially, the mobile operators, the MNOs, came up with premium rates. It was based around SMS, but they also have web-based transactions. And then people like PayPal are coming into the game as well, offering mobile-based systems. Credit card is probably the main way that it happens, and someone like Marks & Spencer's, who have a very successful mobile site, are seeing really quite significant transactions going through credit cards. And then finally, you've got the app stores. And one of the things about iTunes and the cleverness of iTunes is the what they call the behavioral economics behind it. So once you've registered your card, you don't have to put in your card information each time you download an app. You simply say, yes, I want to buy it. So what they've done is they've actually separated the pain of payment, as they call it, from the purchasing. It feels like you haven't spent any money. Similarly, things like Amazon One Click do a similar job. So that's the end of the introduction. This is now a chance for you to test your understanding. So try and describe the path that SMS takes from a user point of view and sends it to a shortcode. So you say shortcode on an advert. How is that going to reach the brand? What are you going to deliver back? Or alternatively, think about how you might create a mobile website for a brand. Think about the technologies that are implicit and how to address them as part of the process.